The heat pressed down like a living thing, heavy and suffocating, turning every breath into work. The jungle around them steamed after a brief afternoon rain, the wet leaves clinging to skin and fabric alike. Insects hummed relentlessly, their droning a constant reminder that nothing here ever truly slept. Somewhere deep in the tangled green, danger waited, patient and silent. Staff Sergeant Daniel Mercer wiped sweat from his eyes and eased forward, each step measured, careful not to disturb the fragile floor of twigs and rotting leaves beneath his boots. For weeks, Mercer and his spotter, Private First Class Ethan Cole, had been tracking rumors, whispers carried by villagers, intercepted radio chatter, and the uneasy silence that followed every patrol that ventured too far into contested territory. A North Vietnamese sniper had been operating in the region, leaving behind a trail of shattered patrols and shaken survivors. The Marines called him Ghost Tiger. No one knew his real name, only that he struck without warning and vanished before anyone could respond. Mercer had faced many skilled marksmen before, but this one was different. Ghost Tiger didn't simply kill. He stalked, studied, and dismantled morale. He let his presence be known just enough to sow fear, then disappeared for days, sometimes weeks, before striking again. Entire units began to hesitate before stepping beyond the wire. That hesitation cost lives. The trail had led Mercer and Cole to a stretch of jungle so dense that daylight barely filtered through the canopy. The air smelled of wet earth and decaying vegetation. Every sound seemed amplified, the snap of a twig, the distant call of birds, the rustle of unseen animals. It was the kind of place where a single mistake meant death. They moved slowly, communicating through hand signals, their eyes scanning every shadow. Mercer's rifle felt like an extension of his body, the familiar weight grounding him. Years of training had taught him patience, discipline, and restraint. But beneath the calm surface, a quiet tension coiled tighter with each passing hour. The first sign came as a faint glint, barely perceptible, like a shard of light caught between leaves. Mercer froze instantly, raising a clenched fist. Cole dropped beside him, his breathing shallow. For long seconds, neither man moved. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Mercer shifted his rifle millimeter by millimeter, aligning the scope toward the glimmer. Through the lens, the chaotic greens and browns sharpened into focus. There, just beyond a fallen log, partially concealed by vines, was the unmistakable outline of a rifle barrel. Ghost Tiger was close. Time slowed. Mercer's heartbeat thundered in his ears, but his hands remained steady. He waited, knowing the slightest movement could betray him. Somewhere across the narrow clearing, another man was likely doing the same, finger resting lightly against the trigger, eyes searching for the smallest mistake. Minutes stretched into eternity. Then, a subtle shift in the foliage revealed more of the hidden figure. A face, smeared with mud and camouflaged by shadows, leaned forward to peer through a scope. The distance between them was no more than 100 yards, point-blank for trained snipers. Both men saw each other at nearly the same instant. Mercer fired. The crack of the rifle shattered the silence, echoing through the jungle. Leaves exploded where the bullet tore through, and the hidden figure collapsed backward, disappearing from view. Cole was already moving, scanning for threats, while Mercer advanced cautiously, rifle raised. They reached the fallen sniper moments later. The man lay motionless, his rifle still pointed toward the spot where Mercer had been moments before. The shot had been clean, entering just beneath the eye. For a moment, Mercer simply stood there, breathing hard, feeling the adrenaline drain from his veins. The Ghost Tiger was gone. But the jungle never truly lets go of its secrets, and Mercer knew this victory, like all others, would fade into memory, replaced by the next mission, the next unseen enemy, the next endless stretch of heat and danger. Years earlier, Mercer had been a boy in rural Montana, learning to shoot to help his family survive. His father had taught him patience, respect for the rifle, and the responsibility that came with every shot. Hunting deer in the snowy forests had given him a sense of purpose and control, a way to provide and protect. When he turned 18, the Marine Corps seemed like a natural extension of that life. The discipline, the challenge, the promise of belonging to something greater than himself, it all called to him. He trained relentlessly, earning a reputation for precision and calm under pressure. When the opportunity to attend sniper school arose, his superiors recommended him without hesitation. The training was brutal. Days blurred into nights as candidates learned to move unseen, to read wind and distance, to disappear into any terrain. Failure meant immediate dismissal. Many dropped out. Mercer endured, driven by a quiet determination and an unshakable belief that he could make a difference. Vietnam tested that belief in ways he never could have imagined. The jungle was a living maze, hostile and unforgiving. Heat exhaustion, disease, and constant ambushes wore down even the toughest Marines. Every patrol was a gamble. Every step might trigger a hidden explosive or draw the attention of unseen eyes. Mercer's first confirmed kill haunted him. The target had been a young man, barely older than himself, carrying a rifle and wearing the uniform of the North Vietnamese army. Through the scope, Mercer had seen fear and resolve flicker across the man's face. He had squeezed the trigger anyway. That night, Mercer lay awake, staring into the darkness, replaying the moment again and again. Over time, the memories dulled, replaced by a grim acceptance of necessity. Each mission, each shot, became another small effort to protect his fellow Marines. Ghost Tiger changed everything. The first encounter came during a routine patrol near a remote village. Without warning, a single shot rang out, dropping the lead scout instantly. Before anyone could react, a second Marine fell. Panic rippled through the unit as they scrambled for cover. Mercer and Cole responded, scanning the tree line, but the shooter was already gone. Over the following weeks, similar attacks struck different units across the region. Always precise. Always deadly. Survivors described the same chilling sensation, a sudden awareness of being watched, followed by the crack of a rifle and the chaos that ensued. The enemy sniper seemed to know their movements, anticipating patrol routes and setting traps. Commanders grew frustrated, morale dipped, and whispers of an invisible hunter spread through the ranks. That was when Mercer and Cole were tasked with the hunt. They studied maps, analyzed patterns, and interviewed survivors. Slowly, a picture emerged. Ghost Tiger favored elevated positions near natural choke points, narrow trails, river crossings, and ridgelines that forced patrols into predictable paths. He used the terrain with deadly intelligence. Days turned into weeks as Mercer and Cole tracked faint signs, disturbed soil, broken branches, abandoned firing positions. Each clue drew them deeper into hostile territory. Supplies ran low. Sleep came in short, uneasy bursts. One night, as rain hammered against their makeshift shelter, Cole broke the silence. "You ever think about what he's like?" he asked quietly. "The man we're hunting?" Mercer considered the question. "Every day. You think he's scared?" "Probably," Mercer replied. "But fear doesn't stop a man who believes in what he's doing." Cole nodded slowly. "Guess that makes two of us." Their final confrontation unfolded days later, in the oppressive stillness of midday. The jungle seemed unusually quiet, as if sensing the tension that hung thick in the air. Mercer felt it in his bones, a certainty that they were close. When the glint caught his eye, everything snapped into focus. After the shot, after the silence returned, Mercer felt no triumph. Only a weary relief. Another hunter gone. Another threat neutralized. Another small step toward survival. They exfiltrated under cover of darkness, carrying the weight of yet another life ended. Back at base, their commanders praised the success, but Mercer felt hollow. The jungle had claimed another soul, and tomorrow it would demand more. Months later, Mercer's war ended abruptly. He was riding in the back of an armored transport along a dusty road when the world exploded in light and sound. The vehicle lurched violently, throwing him against the metal interior. Flames roared, smoke choking the air. Screams filled the chaos. Without thinking, Mercer forced himself up, ignoring the pain searing through his legs. The rear hatch was jammed. The front compartment burned fiercely. Marines were trapped inside. He began pulling men free, one by one, dragging them clear of the wreckage as ammunition cooked off and fuel ignited. Each trip back into the inferno felt like stepping into hell. His skin blistered. His lungs burned. Still, he kept going. By the time he collapsed, 7 men lay alive beside the shattered vehicle. Mercer woke days later in a hospital, wrapped in bandages, his body ravaged by burns and shrapnel wounds. Doctors spoke in careful tones, explaining that his combat days were over. The damage was too severe. His legs might never fully recover. For weeks, he drifted in and out of consciousness, haunted by dreams of jungle shadows and distant gunfire. Recovery was slow and painful. But when he finally stood again, supported by crutches and sheer will, a new purpose took shape. If he could no longer fight, he would teach. Back in the United States, Mercer joined an elite training program, instructing young Marines in the art and discipline of sniping. He taught them patience, humility, and respect for the responsibility they carried. He emphasized survival, not glory. Protection, not vengeance. Students listened with rapt attention as he recounted lessons learned in the jungle, the importance of preparation, the value of restraint, the necessity of teamwork. Many would go on to serve in conflicts around the world, carrying his teachings with them. Years passed. The scars remained, etched deep into his flesh and memory. Some nights, the jungle still visited his dreams. But Mercer found peace in knowing that his experiences had shaped others, that his sacrifices had not been in vain. He never spoke of Ghost Tiger unless asked. When he did, his voice softened, tinged with a strange respect. He was a good soldier, Mercer would say, on the wrong side of a terrible war. Just like me, he was doing what he believed was right. In the quiet moments, Mercer often reflected on the thin line between hunter and hunted, hero and villain. War blurred those distinctions, leaving only survival and loss in its wake. And yet, despite everything, he remained proud of his service, proud of the men he had fought beside, proud of the lives he had saved. Because in the end, that was what mattered most. Not the shots fired, not the enemies fallen, but the comrades who made it home. And somewhere, deep in the memory of a jungle that never truly forgets, the echoes of those days still lingered, whispering stories of courage, sacrifice, and the fragile humanity that endured amid the chaos of war.